The store still when the clock struck 12. The deep, resonant chime rolled through the air like a soft wave, passing through every corridor and echoing faintly against the stone walls. The candles flickered as if in response, and even the portraits stirred uneasily in their frames. Midnight at Hogwarts had always carried its own kind of enchantment, the kind that blurred the line between dreams and waking. Ron leaned forward and looked at the shimmering vial. So, how do we do this? 1 drop each? Hermione hesitated, her quill hovering over her notes. That's what the recipe says, yes. Just a single drop under the tongue. It's meant to be mild, more of a charm than a potion, really. It eases the heart and quiets the mind. Ron grinned. Sounds like it's about time I tried something that actually makes me quieter. Hermione rolled her eyes, but smiled all the same. She carefully uncorked the bottle, and at once, a delicate fragrance filled the air, not sweet or floral, but cool and fresh, like rain falling over old parchment. The potion inside shimmered a soft blue, glowing faintly against the dim firelight. It looked alive, swirling gently as if stirred by unseen hands. Harry leaned closer. "It's beautiful," he murmured, his voice hushed as though afraid to disturb it. "It's also very old magic," Hermione reminded softly, "so we take it seriously." She passed him the vial. "Go on, just 1 drop." Harry hesitated for a moment, studying the liquid as it caught the light. There was something calming about it, like looking into a clear stream. Without another word, he tilted the vial and let a single drop touch his tongue. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, warmth. Not fire, not light, but something gentler. It spread through his chest, his arms, his thoughts, dissolving tension, softening every sharp edge in his memory. He exhaled slowly, realizing only then that he'd been holding his breath. Hermione followed next, cautious but curious. The moment the potion touched her tongue, her eyes softened. "It feels like someone just opened a window inside me," she whispered. "Everything feels clear." Ron shrugged and took his turn. "If this doesn't make me dream of Mum's treacle tart, I'll be disappointed." He swallowed the drop, then blinked. "Okay. Wow. That's nice." The 3 sat in silence for a moment, letting the sensation wash over them. The room seemed to hum softly, the firelight growing warmer, the air lighter. Even the shadows on the walls seemed gentler somehow, swaying in slow rhythm with the dancing flames. But then, something curious began to happen. The parchment on Hermione's lap, her careful notes on potion theory, began to shimmer. The ink lifted faintly off the page, forming tiny golden threads that hung suspended in the air. Hermione gasped softly. "Did you see that?" Before Harry or Ron could answer, the golden threads began to weave themselves together, forming shapes that looked almost like letters, faint and glowing, like wisps of light. They weren't random, they were words. Forget to remember, remember to forget. The letters glowed brighter, then faded, dissolving into tiny motes that drifted upward like sparks. Hermione's voice trembled slightly. "That wasn't there before." "I swear, I didn't write that." Harry leaned closer, watching the air where the words had been. "The potion did something," he murmured. "It's reacting to us." Ron frowned. "Yeah, but what does that mean? Forget to remember? That doesn't even make sense." Hermione bit her lip, thinking hard. Maybe it's trying to tell us that forgetting isn't really forgetting. It's a kind of rest, a pause, not an erasure. Ron blinked. Or maybe it's telling us we're about to forget something we really shouldn't. Hermione didn't answer. The warmth in the room deepened. The air shimmered slightly, as though the space around them had become softer, less solid. The hum that had filled the common room earlier grew into a faint melody, not from any instrument, but from the castle itself. The sound was ancient, rhythmic, and impossibly gentle. Harry stood slowly, his gaze drawn toward the window. "Look," he whispered. Outside, the snow-covered grounds glowed with a strange silver light. The black lake reflected it like liquid glass, and beyond it, faint figures seemed to move, shadows of trees, or perhaps something else. "Maybe it's just moonlight," Hermione whispered, but even she didn't sound convinced. The three of them moved to the window. The world outside seemed to shift with their gaze, slow, dreamlike. The stars shimmered brighter than before, and the castle's reflection in the lake rippled softly, as though the water itself was awake. Then came a whisper, faint, distant, not from outside, but from somewhere within the room. "Remember." They turned sharply, scanning the common room, but no one was there. Ron swallowed. "Please tell me that was just the wind." Hermione stepped closer to the table, her voice barely above a breath. "It wasn't." The whisper came again, slightly clearer this time, yet gentle, almost tender. "Forget to remember. Remember to forget." The potion on the table pulsed faintly in response. Its blue light had changed, now softer, almost silver, like the color of mist. Harry moved closer, his heart steady, curiosity outweighing fear. "Hermione, what if it's not a warning?" he said softly. "What if it's an invitation?" She looked at him uncertainly. An invitation to what? Harry hesitated, then smiled faintly. To remember differently. The air shimmered once more, and for a moment, all three friends that felt something impossible, the faint tug of memories that weren't quite their own, faces they couldn't name, voices like echoes, warm laughter under unfamiliar skies. And then silence. The hum faded, the warmth receded, leaving behind a tranquil stillness. Hermione exhaled shakily, her hands pressed against the table. "That wasn't just magic," she whispered. "That was memory. Old memory. Older than any of us." Ron sat down slowly, rubbing his temples. "I feel like I've been dreaming with my eyes open." Harry's gaze drifted toward the potion. The glow had dimmed now, but a faint trail of mist curled upward from its rim, disappearing into the air like breath. Something had begun. Something subtle, deep, and undeniably real. As the clock ticked softly in the background, the three of them sat in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Hermione's quill still floated faintly above her parchment, its tip dripping tiny beads of glowing ink. Ron's half-eaten toast had turned cold on the table, and Harry couldn't shake the feeling that a part of him, a small, hidden part, had been quietly unlocked, He glanced at his friends. "Whatever this potion is," he said gently, "it doesn't just make you forget. It reminds you of things you didn't know you'd lost." Hermione nodded slowly, her expression distant. "The question is, what happens when it finishes working?" No one answered. The fire crackled softly, the only sound in the room, and outside, the moon drifted higher over Hogwarts, its reflection rippling across the lake, like a memory shimmering just beyond reach. Above them, the faintest whisper lingered still, too soft for words, too deep for fear. The midnight potion had begun its work, and somewhere in the castle's dreaming heart, Hogwarts remembered too. The next morning came quietly, so quietly that for a time it felt as if the castle itself hadn't fully woken. The sky outside was pale and soft, the kind of gray that held the promise of snow. A faint mist hugged the grounds, curling around the towers of Hogwarts, blurring the boundaries between dream and daylight. When Harry opened his eyes, he didn't remember falling asleep. The last thing he recalled was the glow of the potion, the whisper in the air, and the strange sense of warmth spreading through him. But now, as sunlight filtered gently through the curtains of the Gryffindor dormitory, something felt different. The details of the night before sat just out of reach, not gone exactly, but softened like ink smudged by water. He sat up slowly, rubbing his eyes. Ron's bed was empty, the sheets tossed aside, his wand resting haphazardly on the nightstand. From the sound of muffled clattering below, Harry guessed he was already awake, possibly raiding the breakfast tray early, as usual. Hermione's voice floated faintly from the common room, calm and thoughtful. Harry stood, stretched, and made his way down the spiral staircase. The fire was burning again, the same steady crackle as always, but something about the common room felt subtly altered, lighter, brighter, almost unreal. Ron looked up from his seat by the window, toast in hand. "Morning, mate. You all right? You look like you've been sleepwalking." Harry smiled faintly. "Feels like it." Hermione glanced over her shoulder from the table where her notes were spread out. "How much do you remember about last night?" Harry frowned. "Some of it. The potion, the whisper, then nothing. Just dreams." "Dreams?" Hermione asked softly. He nodded. "I think so, but they didn't feel like mine." Ron leaned back, brow furrowed. "Funny, I had dreams too. I was sitting in this same room, but it wasn't Hogwarts. It looked the same, only older, like it was still being built. There were candles everywhere, and I swear I saw people I didn't know. One of them looked a bit like Godric Gryffindor, if you can believe that." Hermione froze. "You too?" Harry's eyes flicked toward her. "You saw them?" She hesitated. "Yes, not clearly, but enough to know it wasn't just a dream. There was a woman. She looked like Rowena Ravenclaw. She was writing something with blue ink that glowed like the potion." The three exchanged looks of quiet awe. Ron scratched his head. "So, what? The potion gave us the same dream?" Hermione shook her head slowly. "Not the same dream. The same memory." They fell silent. The words hung in the air like mist. Hermione reached for her journal, flipping through the pages she'd filled the night before. The ink shimmered faintly, as if alive, but something about it was strange. The handwriting wasn't all hers. "Harry," she whispered, turning the book toward him. "Look." Across the margins of her neat notes, new lines had appeared, written in delicate, looping script that none of them recognized. "To forget is not to lose. Memory sleeps beneath kindness." Below that, faint sketches had formed, outlines of 4 figures standing beneath an archway, the faint curve of the Hogwarts crest taking shape behind them. Harry traced the image lightly with his finger. "This wasn't here last night?" Hermione shook her head. "No, I think the potion didn't just affect us. It's still working." Ron stared at the page. "So, the potion can write?" "We've drunk the one bit of ink that actually has homework feelings." Harry smiled slightly, but his thoughts were far away. "No, it's showing us something. Something the castle wants us to remember." Hermione's brow furrowed. "Or something it wants us to forget." At that moment, the fire flickered, dimming almost to embers before flaring back to life. The flames turned briefly blue, casting cool light over the room. The trio stared as faint shapes began to form in the air, like smoke given structure. It was a memory, delicate and translucent. A woman's silhouette appeared first, tall, graceful, her robes flowing like liquid silver. Her voice was faint but warm, echoing softly through the air. "Magic born of love will outlast memory," she whispered. The image wavered, then faded into mist. Hermione's breath quickened. That was Rowena Ravenclaw's voice. It has to be. Harry felt a soft pressure in his chest. Not fear, but a deep ache, as if the memory itself carried emotion. She said, "Magic born of love will outlast memory." That sounds like a message. Ron nodded slowly. "Yeah, but a message for who? Us? Or whoever brewed this thing first?" Hermione didn't answer. She turned the journal over, and another glowing line appeared across the parchment. "The potion was made for those who could not bear to remember, and those who could not bear to forget." The room seemed to exhale, the air thick with stillness. Harry sat down slowly, his thoughts spinning. So, this potion wasn't meant to erase pain. It was meant to balance it, to let you rest without losing who you are. Hermione nodded faintly. "That's why it didn't feel dark." "It's a potion of mercy." Ron leaned back, his expression softening. "So, people used it to, what, ease grief? Sleep without nightmares?" "Yes," Hermione whispered, "and maybe, sometimes, to remember love without the pain that comes with it." Outside the window, the light shifted, snowflakes beginning to fall in slow spirals. The castle seemed to glow faintly through the haze, every tower and corridor touched by gentle silver light. The air carried a strange peace, the kind that comes not from forgetting, but from acceptance. But then, another change. The parchment began to shimmer again, brighter this time. The ink lifted from the page, swirling through the air before forming a single word in glowing blue script. "Listen." The whisper came again, clearer now, calm but commanding, "Listen to what you've forgotten." For a moment, none of them moved. The fire burned steadily, but the shadows on the walls deepened, stretching higher. The common room felt both familiar and foreign, as though time itself had folded slightly. And then they heard it, a soft melody. It wasn't coming from the fire, or the wind, or the portraits. It was deeper, woven into the very stones around them. A lullaby, faint and slow, echoing through the air like the heartbeat of the castle itself. Harry closed his eyes. The melody stirred something inside him, a feeling of warmth, of safety, of home. He could almost remember hearing it before, maybe long ago, when he was a child, or perhaps in dreams. Ron's voice was hushed. "I know that tune. Mum used to hum it when we were little." Hermione blinked, startled. "But that's impossible." "It's a wizard's lullaby, older than Hogwarts. It was said to be the song the founders used when enchanting the castle's walls." Harry opened his eyes slowly. "It's not impossible," he said softly. "It's memory. The potion's connecting us to the castle's heart, to what it remembers." The sound grew fainter, fading like breath on glass. The fire returned to normal, the blue light vanishing, leaving only warmth and silence. Hermione wrote down the words carefully, though her hands trembled slightly. "Harry," she said softly, "what if this potion wasn't just made by wizards? What if the castle itself finished it?" He looked at her, puzzled. "What do you mean?" She hesitated. "Think about it. Hogwarts is alive in its own way. It remembers students, it protects them, it reacts to emotions. What if this potion was the castle's way of preserving something, of passing down its oldest memories to those willing to listen?" Ron stared at the glowing journal, then at the faint shimmer still lingering in the air. "So we didn't just drink a potion. We drank a piece of Hogwarts." The thought hung between them, both wondrous and humbling. Harry leaned back, letting the quiet settle once more. "If that's true," he said finally, "then maybe this isn't about forgetting pain. Maybe it's about learning what to keep." Hermione nodded slowly, her eyes reflecting the soft flicker of firelight. "The potion isn't meant to take away memory. It's meant to teach us mercy toward it." The three of them sat in peaceful silence, each lost in their own thoughts. The hum of the castle faded to stillness again, the only sound the quiet crackle of the hearth and the whisper of falling snow outside. The second enchantment of the midnight potion had unfolded, not loud, not frightening, but quietly profound. It had reminded them that memory, even painful memory, was never truly an enemy. It was part of the magic that made them who they were. And somewhere deep within the castle, where time drifted like dust through sunlight, Hogwarts seemed to hum softly once more, as though it too remembered something kind. The days that followed passed in a gentle haze, filled with both calm and curiosity. The enchanted potion had changed something in all three friends, not outwardly, but quietly, deep beneath the surface. It was as though Hogwarts itself had left a soft fingerprint on their hearts. Classes went on as usual. Snow continued to fall over the grounds, blanketing the courtyards and towers in silence. Yet, despite the ordinary rhythm of life, Harry, Hermione, and Ron couldn't shake the faint pull that tugged at their minds, a sense that something was still unfinished. One afternoon, the trio sat in the library. The room was filled with its usual hush, the soft rustle of pages, the distant scratch of quills, the faint flicker of enchanted candles overhead. Hermione had surrounded herself with stacks of books, magical memory charms, lost potions of the four founders, psychomagical echoes in enchanted architecture. Harry had chosen a simpler book, Hogwarts Through the Ages. He flipped it open absent-mindedly, watching the moving illustrations of the castle changing through time. The towers rose, shifted, and settled again, as though the castle itself were breathing. "Anything yet?" Ron asked, leaning over Hermione's shoulder. He looked half bored, half intrigued, the usual combination when ancient magical theory was involved. Hermione frowned thoughtfully. "Not much. There are a few references to the potion of rest, but none that match what we've seen. Some think it was brewed by Helga Hufflepuff to help young witches overcome homesickness, but others," she paused, scanning a paragraph, "believe it was a collaborative enchantment created by all four founders as a way to link their memories to the castle itself." Ron blinked. "Wait, you mean that potion might have been meant for the castle, not people?" Hermione nodded slowly. "It's possible. Think about it. Hogwarts is a living thing in its own way. It stores memories, feelings, history. Maybe the potion we found was part of a spell designed to keep that connection alive." Harry glanced toward the window, where the gray winter light spilled softly across the floor. "Then maybe that's why we felt what we did." "The castle wanted to show us what it remembers." Hermione closed her book and looked at him. "But why us?" Harry smiled faintly. "Maybe because we listened." The simplicity of the answer made Hermione fall silent. Outside, a gentle breeze moved through the trees beyond the library windows. For a moment, the sunlight caught in the glass in such a way that it seemed to form shapes, faint, shifting outlines like moving figures. Ron noticed first. Tell me I'm not seeing that." Hermione turned, her breath catching softly. The light shimmered again, clearer this time. It wasn't a trick of the eyes. The figures were real, though ghostly. They were watching something unfold. Four shadows stood together in a circular room, tall, regal, their features blurred by distance. One wore flowing robes of deep crimson, another silver blue, one green trimmed with gold, and the last soft amber. The founders. They weren't speaking, but the room seemed to hum faintly, the vibration of ancient spells woven through the air. On a stone pedestal in the center sat the same blue-glowing vial that now rested quietly in Hermione's satchel. Hermione whispered, "They're making it." The image flickered, and faint echoes reached their ears, not words, but tones. A chant, slow and rhythmic, filled with warmth. The shadows raised their wands together, and the vial began to glow brighter, its light filling the chamber. Then, silence. The light faded, the vision dissolved. Ron exhaled shakily. "All right, I'm officially done calling this potion just a potion." Hermione's eyes gleamed with awe. They weren't creating a sleeping draft. They were creating a memory link. The potion wasn't designed to make anyone forget. It was meant to share memory across time. Harry frowned softly. Across time? She nodded. Think about it. The potion connects whoever drinks it to the Founder's original enchantment. That's why we're seeing what Hogwarts remembers. The castle stores their emotions, their magic, their hopes, and the potion lets us feel it. Harry leaned back slowly, processing her words. So, when we drank it, we became part of Hogwarts' memory. Hermione nodded again, quieter this time. Exactly. Ron blinked. So, we're walking around inside a castle that now thinks we're part of it? Harry smiled faintly. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. Hermione closed her book gently, the realization settling in her voice. Then the real question isn't what the potion does, it's why it reawakened now. The library grew still again, as though it too were listening. Outside, snowflakes drifted past the tall windows. The light dimmed, and for a moment, everything seemed suspended. The books, the air, even time. Then, softly, the sound of parchment fluttered through the aisles. A book had fallen open by itself on a nearby table. Hermione rose and crossed to it carefully. The book was old, its leather cracked and its title nearly faded. Foundations of Hogwarts, it read in curling script. She turned the pages gently, her eyes widening. Harry, Ron, look at this. They joined her, leaning over the yellowed parchment. The page showed a sketch, an alchemical circle nearly identical to the one they'd seen appear in the air during the potion's first enchantment. At the center of the circle was an inscription, "Only in forgetting may remembrance be complete." Hermione whispered the words aloud, her tone reverent. It's a paradox. They believed that to truly remember something, you must first let it go. Harry stared at the page. Then maybe that's what the potion wants from us. To help Hogwarts remember what's been forgotten, by helping us forget what we hold too tightly. Ron frowned. That's not exactly comforting. Hermione smiled faintly. It's not meant to be scary, Ron. It's about trust. The Founders trusted the castle with their memories. Maybe now, it's trusting us with theirs. The fire in the nearby hearth crackled softly, the flames flickering blue for a moment, the same hue as the potion's glow. For a while, no one spoke. The quiet was comfortable, almost sacred. Then Harry closed the book gently. There's only one way to know for sure. Hermione looked at him warily. You mean? He nodded. We drink the rest. Ron groaned. Of course we do. Midnight potions, memory ghosts, talking ink. Why stop now? But despite his words, there was no real protest in his voice. The curiosity that had driven their friendship through so many adventures was alive again, glowing faintly beneath their calm exteriors. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, they returned to the Gryffindor common room. The fire burned softly, the golden and crimson banners fluttered gently in the warmth, and the enchanted inkpot sat waiting where they had left it. Harry uncorked the vial once more. The blue light flared briefly, reflecting in their eyes like a mirror. Together, Hermione said quietly. They each took a single drop. This time, the change came gently, like the slow closing of a door. The air shimmered faintly, and the room filled with a warm glow. The walls around them seemed to shift. The colors deepened. The ceiling arched higher. The furniture, the fire, even the very air felt older, like the castle's memory was wrapping around them, pulling them softly into its dream. They were standing in the same room, but it wasn't the Gryffindor common room anymore. It was an earlier version, simple and small, lit by floating torches. The smell of new wood and fresh stone filled the air. Hermione's voice was barely a whisper. "We're in Hogwarts," as it once was. Figures passed by, faint echoes blurred by time. Young witches and wizards laughed, their robes plain, their faces unrecognizable yet familiar in spirit. The warmth of their joy filled the air like sunlight. Harry felt a calm awe settle over him. This is what the potion wanted us to see. Hermione nodded, tears glinting in her eyes. Hogwarts' first memories, the happiness it was built on. Ron smiled faintly. "Feels good, doesn't it?" Harry nodded. "It does." The vision shimmered, then began to fade, leaving behind the faint sound of laughter, warm, kind, and eternal. They were back in their own time again, the fire burning low, the castle quiet. The potion bottles sat empty on the table, its light gone, yet the room glowed faintly with an inner warmth. Hermione whispered, "It shared its joy with us." Harry looked around the room, at the flickering fire, at his friends, at the quiet peace that seemed to fill the air, and he smiled softly. "And we gave it something back. We reminded it that kindness still lives here." Outside, the wind sighed through the snow-dusted towers, carrying the faint echo of that laughter, the laughter of Hogwarts itself, alive and remembering once more. The suspense had not ended in fear or darkness, but in revelation, gentle, mysterious, and full of light. And somewhere deep beneath the castle's heart, the enchantment of the midnight potion continued to hum, eternal and content, the memory of a memory, resting in peace. The following evening unfolded with the same quiet rhythm that only Hogwarts could hold, a stillness that hummed softly beneath the stone walls, filled with ancient memories and unseen magic. Snow continued to drift outside, slow and weightless, while candlelight danced in the windows of the castle like tiny floating stars. The three friends gathered once again in the Gryffindor common room. The air felt heavier than before, not in a way that burdened them, but as though the castle itself was listening. Every flicker of flame, every whisper of the wind outside seemed to draw closer to their words. Hermione sat cross-legged on the rug, parchment spread across the floor around her. She had begun mapping the events of the past few days. The first drink, the shared dream, the vision of the founders, and the laughter of the early Hogwarts students. Lines of ink connected each moment, curling into a pattern that looked almost like a constellation. Ron leaned over her shoulder. "You know, that actually looks like the Hogwarts crest, if you squint really hard." Hermione smiled softly. "It's not far off. These connections aren't random. The potion's memories, or the ones the castle shared with us, form a cycle. It begins with creation, then loss, then remembrance. Every memory the castle gave us follows that same pattern." Harry was sitting nearby, elbows resting on his knees, watching the fire with quiet thought. Maybe that's the lesson the potion's been teaching us all along, he said slowly. That magic, real magic, isn't just about power or memory. It's about understanding what to let go of and what to hold on to. Hermione looked up at him. Exactly. The founders didn't want to preserve every memory. They wanted to protect what mattered most: kindness, learning, courage, unity. Ron frowned, still peering at her notes. So what happens now? Do we just wait for the potion to wear off? Hermione hesitated. Maybe. Or maybe we have to make a choice. Harry turned toward her. A choice? She nodded, her voice calm but certain. Every magical connection demands balance. We've shared the castle's memories, its beginnings, its laughter, but memory is never one-sided. I think we're meant to give something back. Ron blinked. You mean, like what? A donation? Hermione gave him a look that made Harry laugh quietly. Not that kind of giving, Ron. A memory, something dear, something true. The room grew still again. Even the fire seemed to hush. Harry's gaze fell to the empty potion bottle on the table, its glass catching the light like water. If we give something, he said slowly, does that mean we'll forget it? Hermione shook her head gently. No, the potion doesn't take things away. It transforms them. Whatever we offer, it won't be lost, just woven into Hogwarts' own memory. Ron leaned back, staring at the ceiling. So, let me get this straight. We each give a memory, and Hogwarts keeps it? Like a gift for the castle? Hermione nodded. A gift of remembrance. The castle shared its first memories with us. Now we share our most precious ones in return. Harry looked thoughtful. That feels right. For a few moments, none of them spoke. Each was lost in their own quiet reflections, sorting through the stories of their lives, the moments that had shaped them. Finally, Hermione set her quill down and whispered, I'll go first. She reached for the vial, now dull and still, and held it gently in both hands. I want to give Hogwarts the memory of our first year, she said softly, the night we saved the Philosopher's Stone. Not the danger or the fear, but the part where we stood together, certain we could trust one another. That was when I first understood what friendship really meant. She closed her eyes, breathing deeply. A faint shimmer appeared around her, like soft starlight. The potion bottle pulsed once, just barely, and Hermione smiled, calm and peaceful. There, she whispered. It's done. Harry and Ron exchanged glances, then Ron grinned faintly. All right then. My turn. He took the vial in his hands, looking at it for a long while. I'll give it something simple, he said finally. The memory of Mum's kitchen on Christmas morning. Everyone laughing, the smell of cinnamon, the fire going, that feeling that everything's going to be okay. He smiled quietly as he handed the bottle to Harry. The castle could use a bit of that, don't you think? Harry nodded. The warmth in Ron's voice lingered in the air like sunlight. He turned the vial over in his hand, watching the glass catch the firelight. For a moment, he said nothing. Then, in a soft voice, he murmured, I'll give it the memory of the first time I realized Hogwarts was home. Hermione's eyes softened. It was that first night, Harry continued, When I walked into the great hall and saw the candles floating in the air, the stars above the ceiling, and all of you sitting there, I didn't know it then, but that moment changed everything. It was the first time I didn't feel alone. The room fell into silence, a deep, peaceful silence that seemed to hum with quiet magic. The air shimmered faintly, and the vial began to glow again, not blue this time, but gold. Warm, soft, steady. The three of them watched as the light filled the space between them, then drifted upward, spreading across the ceiling like tiny sparks. Each spark seemed to addle into the stones of the common room, the portraits, the bookshelves, disappearing into the castle itself. Hermione smiled through a quiet tear. It's accepting them. Ron chuckled softly. Well, I hope it keeps mine somewhere near the kitchens. The light faded gently, leaving behind only warmth and the slow crackle of the fire. Hermione closed her journal and exhaled. There, she said softly. Now the circle is complete. We've seen Hogwarts' memories, and we've shared ours. The balance is restored. Harry leaned back, watching the last few embers glow faintly in the hearth. Do you think the castle will remember us? He asked quietly. Hermione looked at him with a knowing smile. It already does. Outside, the snow fell thicker, muffling every sound until the world seemed to exist only within that quiet room. The three friends sat together, saying nothing more, the warmth of the fire reflecting in their eyes. And as the castle settled into peaceful silence once again, it felt as though Hogwarts itself sighed contentedly, filled at last with the shared memories of those who loved it most. The castle was quiet again. It was well past midnight, and a gentle frost had settled over the window panes, turning every reflection into a soft shimmer of silver. The Gryffindor fire burned low, glowing like the last heartbeat of a long, peaceful evening. The trio had not gone to bed. None of them could bring themselves to, not yet. There was still something lingering in the air, a sense that one final truth waited to be revealed. Hermione sat by the table, her head resting against her hand, her quill forgotten beside her notes. The parchment in front of her was blank, but she didn't seem to mind. The quiet had become its own kind of comfort. Ron was half asleep in the armchair, a blanket draped over his shoulders, his wand still faintly glowing from the Lumos charm he'd cast an hour ago. He murmured something in his sleep about treacle tart, which made Harry smile faintly. Harry, however, wasn't sleepy. He stood by the window, watching the moonlight spill across the grounds, that soft, silvery light that had always made Hogwarts look like something out of a dream. The castle shimmered faintly, alive and aware, as though listening. Hermione, he said softly, not taking his eyes off the view, do you think the castle can feel us? Hermione blinked herself awake. Feel us? Yeah, Harry said. When we gave it those memories, I felt something, like it was grateful. Hermione smiled, her voice calm and certain. It was. Magic that ancient doesn't just react, it responds. Hogwarts has always been more than walls and classrooms. It's a living memory, built on everything its people have ever felt and believed. Harry nodded slowly. I think it remembered us too. At that, Ron stirred from his chair. Remembered us. Blimey, I'd rather it forgot that time I fell asleep in McGonagall's class. Thought she'd turn me into a footstool. Harry chuckled quietly, then turned back toward the table. No, I mean, it remembered who we are. It's not just holding memories anymore, it's sharing them. Hermione tilted her head. What do you mean? Before Harry could answer, the faintest hum began to fill the room, that same soft vibration they'd heard before when the potion had first awakened. The glow from the fireplace dimmed slightly, replaced by a slow, golden light that spread from the floor upward, filling the air around them. Ron sat up straight, now fully awake. Oh no, not again. But there was no danger in the glow, no tension. It was warm and gentle, wrapping around them like sunlight through water. The walls of the common room shimmered and shifted, and suddenly they weren't in their time anymore. They stood in what looked like the Great Hall, but not as they knew it. The banners were simple, unadorned. The walls were rough stone. Candles floated above, their flames bright and pure. At the far end of the hall, 4 figures stood in a circle around a glowing vial, the same color as the midnight potion. Hermione gasped softly. The Founders. Rowena Ravenclaw's voice carried across the air, calm and clear. To preserve what we love, we must trust it to remember itself. Helga Hufflepuff placed a hand over the vial, her expression tender, so that those who come after us may not bear our sorrows, but share our hopes. Salazar Slytherin's tone was quieter, cautious, but sincere. If they are wise enough to listen, they will hear us through the stones. Godric Gryffindor smiled faintly, his golden hair catching the light, and when they do, they will know what we knew, that Hogwarts was built not of magic alone, but of courage, care, and friendship. The 4 wizards raised their wands, and light burst upward, spiraling into the ceiling. The glow spread like ripples on a lake, filling every corner of the hall. Then, one by one, their forms began to fade. Rowena's voice lingered the longest, soft as wind over parchment. Forget to remember. Remember to forget. Only in kindness may magic remain pure. The vision dissolved. The 3 friends stood once more in their own time, the warmth of the moment still clinging to them. The common room looked unchanged, yet there was something different, a subtle hum beneath the air, like a steady heartbeat. Hermione pressed a hand to her chest. They finished it, she whispered. That was the last piece. The potion wasn't just a memory, it was a message. The Founders created it to remind every generation of what Hogwarts truly stands for. Harry sat down beside her, his eyes bright. That magic we felt, it wasn't just their legacy. It's us, too. Everyone who's ever loved this place, every laugh, every lesson, every friendship, it all becomes part of the same story. Ron exhaled slowly, his voice quieter than usual. So Hogwarts isn't just alive because of old spells. It's alive because of us. Hermione smiled. Yes, every act of kindness, every bit of courage, even small things, they keep the magic alive. The Founders made sure Hogwarts would never lose its heart, no matter how much time passed. The light around them dimmed, leaving only the warm flicker of the fire. Harry leaned back, his thoughts turning inward. You know, when I first came here, I thought Hogwarts was just a school, a place to learn magic. But it's more than that, isn't it? It's a memory that never stops growing. Hermione nodded softly. A memory that listens and forgives and carries us forward. Ron yawned, smiling drowsily. That's nice and all, but if the castle starts talking again, I'm moving into Hogsmeade. Hermione laughed quietly. I think it already said everything it needed to. For a long while, they sat together in peaceful silence. The air in the common room was filled with warmth, the kind that wasn't just from fire, but from something unseen, the gentle pulse of shared magic still echoing from centuries past. Harry gazed at the portrait hole, thinking of all the students who had passed through it before them, generations of dreamers, troublemakers, and heroes, and all the ones who would come after. He smiled. It's strange, he murmured, but I feel like the castle knows our names. Hermione looked at him, her eyes soft with understanding. It always has. The three of them leaned back, the weight of discovery settling not as a burden, but as peace. They had uncovered the heart of Hogwarts, not a secret of power or danger, but one of remembrance and love. And in that quiet revelation, as the snow continued to fall outside and the fire dimmed to its final glow, the castle seemed to sigh in contentment. A faint whisper moved through the air, so soft it might have been imagined. Thank you for remembering. Harry closed his eyes, the warmth of the room wrapping around him like a blanket. For once, he didn't feel the need to speak or move. Everything felt complete. In the stillness of that midnight hour, they understood what the founders had meant, that forgetting and remembering were not opposites, but companions. That true magic was not in casting spells, but in holding love long enough to pass it on. And Hogwarts, eternal and ever kind, would remember them, quietly, endlessly, as three friends who gave it back its heart. The morning that followed felt like the gentlest dream. A soft golden light poured through the tall, arched windows of the common room, spilling across the red carpets and worn wooden tables. The castle was awake again, though differently than before, quieter, lighter, as if the stones themselves were breathing in relief. Harry sat by the fire, his legs tucked up, holding a mug of tea that Hermione had conjured earlier. The air smelled faintly of cinnamon and parchment, an aroma so warm, so utterly Hogwarts, that it almost seemed alive. Outside, snowflakes drifted lazily past the windows, catching sunlight like tiny sparks of silver. Ron was perched near the window, staring dreamily at the white blanket covering the grounds below. It's funny, he murmured. Everything looks the same, but it doesn't feel the same anymore. Hermione glanced up from her notes, smiling softly. That's because we've changed, and the castle has too. She was writing one last entry in her journal, her quill gliding gracefully across the parchment. The pages were full now, diagrams of runes, sketches of the potion's glow, notes on the visions they had seen. But her final words were simple and small. The heart of Hogwarts beats in kindness. Harry leaned back in his chair, letting the quiet fill him. The events of the past few nights seemed distant, almost unreal, like ripples fading across still water. Yet, in his heart, he could still feel it, the warmth of the founders' voices, the hum of the castle's memory, and the soft echo of laughter from centuries past. "It's strange," he said quietly. "The potion was supposed to make us forget, but I feel like I remember more than ever." Hermione smiled knowingly. "Because you understand now. Forgetting isn't losing. It's letting go long enough to remember what truly matters." Ron stretched, his blanket slipping off his shoulders. "Yeah, well, next time, let's try a potion that just makes me dream about sleeping." Hermione laughed, a sound so pure that it made the portraits stir in their frames. "I think Hogwarts has had enough of our experiments for one lifetime." The three friends sat together in comfortable silence, the kind that didn't need words. Outside, the sun rose higher, casting golden light across the frozen lake. The snow sparkled like powdered stars, and for the first time in a long time, everything felt perfectly still. After a while, Hermione stood and closed her journal with care. "You know," she said softly, "I don't think the castle will ever forget us now." Harry's gaze drifted toward the walls. The soft shimmer of enchantment that always lingered in the edges of the room. He could almost sense it, the castle remembering, listening, feeling. "It won't," he said gently. "We're part of its story now." Ron grinned. Imagine future students stumbling across that potion one day. They'll never believe what it really was. Hermione chuckled. "Maybe that's the point. Some magic isn't meant to be explained. It's meant to be felt." The fire crackled softly, sending tiny sparks into the air. They rose, twirled, and disappeared, like memories finding their way back home. Harry stood, walking to the window. The grounds stretched endlessly before him, bright and peaceful somewhere. Beyond the great hall, the lake reflected the morning sky, still and perfect. The castle's spires rose proudly against the sunlight, their snow-tipped peaks glowing like gold. He took a deep breath, the cold air brushing gently against his face. It was the kind of morning that asked for nothing but gratitude. Behind him, Ron had dozed off again, his head tilted back, snoring softly. Hermione was tidying the last of her parchment, humming a quiet tune. Harry smiled, feeling that familiar warmth bloom in his chest, the warmth that came only from home. And as he turned back toward the fire, he thought he heard it again, that faint, low hum, the castle's whisper, soft as a lullaby. It wasn't a voice, not really, just a feeling, a gentle reassurance that filled the air like magic itself. Everything was as it should be. The enchantment of the midnight potion had ended, but its gift remained. The kind of gift that lived not in memory or power, but in peace. And in that peace, Hogwarts, eternal and kind, dreamed quietly once more. As the day drew to a close, Hogwarts settled into one of those evenings that seemed woven out of comfort and memory. The last traces of sunlight faded beyond the snowy hills, and the castle glowed softly under the rising moon. From the great hall to the astronomy tower, the windows shimmered like 100 warm candles against the silver night. Harry sat once more by the fire, the warmth flickering gently across his face. The flames burned low now, soft and steady, filling the room with that familiar scent of wood and old magic. The common room was almost empty. Ron had fallen asleep in his chair again, his blanket sliding halfway to the floor, and Hermione rested nearby, her head bowed over a closed book, her breathing slow and peaceful. For a moment, Harry simply listened. The quiet hum of Hogwarts was there again, that subtle vibration in the air, like the heartbeat of the castle itself. It pulsed gently through the floor, through the walls, through his chest. It was steady, alive, and safe. He smiled faintly. Somewhere deep inside, he knew the castle truly did remember them, not as heroes, not as students, but as friends who had given back a small piece of themselves. The enchantment they had awakened was not one of power or mystery, but of warmth, the quiet kind that lived in laughter, kindness, and shared memories. A log in the fireplace cracked softly, sending a tiny shower of sparks upward. Harry's eyes followed them as they drifted into the air and faded into nothing. Yet somehow, even in their disappearance, there was beauty. It was the way of all things in Hogwarts, fleeting moments becoming part of something eternal. He leaned back in his chair, letting the warmth of the fire and the comfort of the castle surround him. The flicker of the flames blurred softly, and the sound of the wind outside grew faint. In that silence, he could almost hear a whisper, light as a sigh, soft as a promise. "Sleep well, dear one. You are home." The last ember in the hearth glowed gently, casting its final light across the room. And as the snow fell outside the tall windows, Hogwarts, timeless, watchful, and kind, kept its silent vigil, cradling every dream within its heart.